Welcome to the deep dive. Forever, the sheer distances in space have seemed like an insurmountable problem.
Yeah, just mind-bogglingly vast.
Exactly. But today, we're looking at something that tackles that head-on, a patent application for a warp engine powered by gravitational waves. It popped up back in April 2021.
And it outlines a really novel idea. Ambitious, maybe, but novel.
Definitely ambitious. So our mission for you in this deep dive is to get a handle on the basic concept here. What's this technology about? What could it mean? We'll try not to get too lost in the weeds, technically speaking.
Right. We're focusing on the core science idea, manipulating space-time itself for propulsion. It sounds like pure sci-fi, doesn't it?
It really does. But this patent lays out a specific physics-based path, or at least a proposed path. Our main source is the patent document itself, descriptions, diagrams, the whole thing.
Okay, so let's unpack it. What's the absolute core idea behind this engine?
Well, fundamentally, it's about matter-antimatter annihilation, getting them to collide in a very controlled way.
That's right. Specifically, the patent talks about using sodium-22. It's a radioactive isotope.
And that gives off positrons, antimatter electrons.
Exactly. And here's a key detail. They cool this sodium-22 source way, way down, like 6 degrees Kelvin.
Wow, okay. That's incredibly cold. Why so cold?
It seems it helps manage how the positrons are emitted, gives them more precise control over the whole process, you know?
Right, control seems critical here. So you got these positrons coming off the super cold sodium. What's next?
Then they bring in electrons, regular electrons from an electron gun. And both these streams, the positrons and the electrons, are guided.
Guided how?
Using magnetic fields. The patent describes using solenoids, basically, electromagnets, right? Coils of wire. These create the magnetic field to steer the particles. And the whole point is to make them collide. Bang! At a very specific spot inside the engine.
Okay, so magnetic fields herd the positrons and electrons together. And this collision, this is meant to create gravitational waves for the warp drive.
That's the linchpin of the idea, yeah. When an electron and a positron annihilate, they release energy. A lot of energy, actually.
Gamma rays, usually, right?
Usually, yes. But the patent proposes that by orchestrating these collisions, just so controlling the particle numbers, the energy fluctuations, they can generate gravitational waves. These ripples in space-time Einstein predicted.
Which are normally incredibly faint, really hard to detect, let alone create on demand.
Extremely hard.
Yeah.
But the patent goes further. It suggests they can then manipulate these generated waves to create the warp effect, basically punch a hole, or rather warp space-time locally.
So a ship could ride that wave effectively, travel faster than light without locally breaking the light speed limit.
That's the classic Alcubierre warp drive concept. And this seems like a new proposed mechanism to actually create that localized warp using these controlled annihilations.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, let's visualize the engine. You mentioned a diagram, figure 1. Can you walk us through the parts?
Sure. So number 1 on the diagram, that's the sodium-22 source we talked about, kept at 6 Kelvin. Then 2 is the electron gun. Simple enough, provides the electrons.
Got it.
3 represents the solenoids, the coils creating the magnetic field around the path the particles take.
And 4, that must be the collision point.
That's it, the spot where they aim for the electrons and positrons to meet and annihilate.
And it all happens inside 5, which is a tube.
Yes, a tube. And crucially, look at 7.5. It indicates it's under vacuum.
Ah, of course. You don't want the particles hitting air molecules or anything else.
Definitely not. It would completely disrupt the process. Needs to be a near-perfect vacuum.
Now, what about these things labeled 6.5 cylindrical segmented electrodes?
Ah, good catch. Those are important for fine-tuning. While the magnetic field from the solenoids does the main steering, these segmented electrodes allow for much more precise adjustments to the particle paths. Think of trajectory 8 for the positron and 9 for the electron.
How do they work? Electrically?
Yeah, by applying specific voltages to different segments, they can create small electric fields that nudge the particles. It's like having microsteering along the way.
So magnetic fields for the broad strokes, and these electrodes for the pinpoint accuracy to ensure collision at point 4.
Exactly. You need that precision.
Okay, that paints a clear picture of the mechanics. Now, back to the physics. How does this collision actually generate usable gravitational waves? You mentioned manipulation.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit more speculative. The patent talks about controlling the frequency of the gravitational waves produced.
Frequency, like sound waves have frequency.
Sort of analogous, yeah. The idea seems to be that by carefully timing and locating these annihilations, the resulting gravitational waves can constructively interfere. They can build on each other.
Oh, like pushing a swing?
That's a great analogy. Push at the right moment, the resonant frequency, and even small pushes make the swing go high.
So they're trying to find a resonant frequency for gravity waves.
That seems to be the core concept. They want to arrange the collisions so the waves converge, build up to this resonance frequency. And that amplified focused gravitational wave is what they propose could actually warp space-time enough for a drive.
Resonance. That does imply a very fine-tuned control needed.
Absolutely. They claim that by controlling things at the collision point, they can actually bend space-time predictably.
And they think this method could be more energy efficient, because that's always the killer problem with warp drive ideas, the colossal energy needed.
That's a major claim in the patent, yes. They aim to reduce the energy cost compared to, say, needing Jupiter mass amounts of exotic matter like some theories propose. The goal is a continuous gravitational field at a desired strength, maybe making sustained warp travel, less impossible energetically.
Less impossible. Okay, that would be revolutionary. Assuming it pans out, what applications do they envision beyond the obvious warp drive itself?
Well, the warp drive is the big one, obviously, enabling rockets to travel vastly faster. Interstellar travel becomes thinkable.
Shortening trips to Mars from months to days, maybe, or even reaching nearby stars.
Potentially, yes. That's the dream. But they also mention other, perhaps nearer-term or secondary applications.
Like what?
Artificial gravity.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the continuous gravitational field they aim to create.
Mm.
Maybe it could be used inside space stations or long-haul ships.
That would be huge for astronaut health on long missions, counteracting bone density loss, muscle atrophy.
Exactly. Current artificial gravity ideas, like rotating sections, are complex and have limitations. This could, if it works, be a different approach.
Okay, faster travel, artificial gravity, anything else?
They touch on some other quite cool possibilities, like maybe using this tech to nudge dangerous meteorites off course. Planetary defense.
Wow, deflecting asteroids with gravity manipulation.
It's in the patent as a potential application. Also, helping robotic probes or mining equipment land and operate on low-gravity bodies, like asteroids. Makes sense if you can generate your own local gravity field.
So space travel, space habitation, planetary defense, space resource utilization. It's quite a list.
It really covers a lot of ground. Fundamentally, it's about making space accessible. Faster transport for everything, satellites, telescopes, robotic probes, eventually people. Cutting journey times could just accelerate everything we do in space.
It's incredibly ambitious. Now, let's look at the patent claims themselves. What are they specifically saying is new here? What's the core invention they're trying to protect?
The main claim focuses on the method generating gravitational waves for a warp engine by controlling these specific particles.
The positrons from sodium-22 and the electrons from the gun.
Right. Controlling their trajectories, making them collide at that specific point for the purpose of generating these waves for propulsion. That matter-antimatter collision mechanism for gravitational wave generation, for warp drive, that's the heart of it.
And the hardware setup is also part of the claim.
Yes. The claim includes the engine comprising specific components. The solenoids for the magnetic field control, and those cylindrical segmented electrodes for the fine-tuning, all within the vacuum chamber, the whole functional assembly.
Okay. Now, the patent process involves looking at prior art. The search report mentioned a couple of older patents. How do they relate?
Yeah, there was a U.S. patent from 2003 mentioned. It talked about modulating electron mass, moving electrons inside a rotating body to increase speed for energy generation.
Sounds a bit different. Manipulating electrons, yes, but not antimatter, not for gravitational waves or warp drive.
Exactly. Similar area particle manipulation for energy, but a different mechanism and a totally different goal. No mention of positrons, annihilation, or gravity waves for propulsion.
And the other one, a German patent.
That one was apparently more general, related to gravitational field propulsion.
So, same broad ambition, using gravity to propel something, but this patent application's specific method, the controlled annihilation generating the waves, seems to be what's claimed as novel. Okay, so it carves out a unique niche, proposing this specific matter-antimatter collision technique.
That appears to be the case, based on the report.
Right. So let's try and wrap this up. We've looked at this patent for a warp engine. It's proposing a really novel way to potentially get around space-time limitations.
Using controlled collisions of electrons and positrons.
From a supercooled sodium-22 source and an electron gun guided by magnetic fields and these special electrodes.
All happening in a vacuum, aiming to generate gravitational waves through some kind of resonance effect.
Yeah, that resonance idea is key. And the big hope is that this could dramatically lower the energy needed for warp travel compared to other theories.
Which, if true, would be the breakthrough everyone's looking for in that field. Plus those potential side benefits like artificial gravity or even asteroid deflection.
It really captures the imagination, doesn't it? Using fundamental physics, matter, antimatter, trying to engineer the fabric of space-time itself.
Yeah, it does. It's that aha kind of thinking, even if the practical challenges are immense.
Absolutely immense, you have to assume. Which leads to a final thought for you, our listener. Considering just how difficult manipulating gravity must be, what kind of unexpected problems might crop up trying to build something like this? And beyond warp drives, what other concepts that seem pure science fiction today might be waiting for a similar clever patent, a similar innovative spark to start becoming, well, maybe possible. Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.